Hello and welcome to the first of a series of videos about the new Mission Editor 2 for Flight Sim 10 FSX. This is a new and improved version of the original Flight Sim Mission Editor, which has been around for donkey's years. If you've used that before, then you should be able to see immediately that things have changed quite dramatically, although if you've used it before, then it will be still familiar enough for you to jump in without too many problems. So what I'm going to do in this first one is just give a quick overview of how to get going, what the Mission Editor is for, and why it exists in the first place. So I'm just going to close that and go into the new Mission Wizard. Hit Next there, and we have lots of options in here already. You can create a new mission straight from a flight sim recording, or from a stored flight plan, or from a template, which is more complicated and I'll come back to. But the most simple thing is from airport to airport, so I shall pick that. And where do we want to start? Well, let's pick Singapore. How many do we have in Singapore? No, let's not pick Singapore, let's pick Switzerland. These airports here and countries are actually pulled from the Flight Sim 10 data files. So if you have additional scenery installed with more airports, custom airports, they will appear in here. So let's fly from Geneva. Let's not fly from a helipad. We can switch that option off. Runway 23. And now we're on the destination airport, so let's fly to Lugano. Starting date is going to be today. You can choose the type of weather. If you're running a weather theme, you can choose which weather theme you have. And again, as with the scenery, if you have custom aircraft installed, then you can choose any of the custom aircraft. But we're going to choose a DC-3. Why not? And we're going to just finish. It's going to build that mission. And here's where you begin to see the guts of the program. This area up here on the left is the overview, and you can see that in this case there is very little to the mission at all. But the structure is basically very simple. We have triggers which wait for something to happen, and when that thing happens, whatever it is, they call actions which make other things happen. And you build a mission from simply waiting for things to happen and then making other things happen. It's as simple as that. Of course, it's not quite as simple as that, because getting these things to work correctly, putting them in the right sequence, that takes a lot of help, and it's that the Mission Editor is for. So if I just follow this through very quickly, we have a timer which waits for 3 seconds, just to make things pause a little right at the start. You can see that that one is activated and it only fires once. That then calls a dialogue which plays some speech and optionally puts the text on the screen as well. And then it activates the next trigger. Now this is one of the most important things you can do. If we look at the next trigger, Test Briefing 1, you can see that that one is activated. That means that it won't fire until something else activates it. What that one's looking for is that the aircraft's altitude is above 200 feet. So when this one is activated, this will then begin to fire as you fly above 200 feet. So we're waiting, we're giving some instructions, and then we're waiting for the player to actually take off and get flying. If I scroll a little further to the right here, once you do reach 200 feet, we then have another dialogue, some more instructions. We then activate the next part of the mission, and we activate a point of interest. This is basically just a big rotating green marker that appears in the simulator. You don't have to have these, but it does give people a big help if you are asking them to fly to a particular point. The final trigger in this very simple mission again starts as non-activated. It's activated by this, and it's waiting for a full stop landing at the airport LSZA, which was the one that we chose in the wizard. After you do a full stop landing, we get some final instructions. A goal is marked as complete. Now, a goal is really how the simulator knows that the mission is complete. You can have one goal, you can have many goals, and the goals can be set to either completed successfully or failed. And they can be set to optional or not, so you can have optional side bits to your mission or story. Now that really is the basics of how a mission is held together. Wait for something to happen, make something else happen, and usually switch on the next thing that you're going to be waiting for. Because one of the common mistakes you see on downloaded missions is that all of the triggers are active by default. So you could take off there and then never pass 200 feet and land there, and you would still complete the mission successfully if this was active to start off with. So, very quick tour of the screen around that. We have the overview at the left, which is just a shrunk version of the main display. These displays can get very busy very quickly once you start building real stories in this. We have a list of things that have changed, so you can very quickly go back to places that you have been working on recently. Down at the bottom we have a find option, so you can search by name or by type, and all of the available types are listed in there. You can add comments to things. That's these little yellow post-it notes that are stuck beneath the triggers and actions. Just a text reminder for you, why you put it there, what it does, absolutely anything you like. These ones are auto-generated by the wizard. Debugging. You can run your mission in the simulator and then use this to watch what sequence things happen in. So that's a very powerful tool for working out why certain bits of the mission don't work the way you expect them to all the time. We have a list of errors, which again is one of the key points. This one is showing only one minor error, a style error, and it says that the runway filter is not set, you can land on any runway. If I double click on there, and if I double click on any of these list boxes, it shows me which thing it's complaining about. In this case it's complaining about the airport landing trigger, and because it's a style error, I can probably ignore it. If, for example, I change the activation action so that it never actually activates this, you can see now we have warnings. Activated is false and it's never set to true. In other words, this is never ever going to do anything. And of course there are hundreds and hundreds of options for these error messages built in. One of the big problems with FSX is that if you design a mission using the built-in tools, they really don't tell you much if it doesn't work. The only indication you get that it's not going to work is that it doesn't load, most of the time. If you're lucky, it does load, but then things mysteriously start to fail halfway through. That's really the origin of this. Way back in 20-whatever, I was kindly invited by Microsoft to be part of their beta team for the original release of Flight Sim 10. As you can imagine, everyone on the beta team, the external beta team, were keenly interested in frame rates, and going through the beta error messages, the things that people were posting, it was pretty much inevitably about this is running slowly, no matter how many times Microsoft said this is a slow build, it's a debug build, don't worry about it. That doesn't really help people to debug the tool, because there were huge areas of it that weren't being tested at all by external people. And one of the new things in FSX was the mission system. Now, a lot of people complained about the mission system when it came in because they were scared that it was going to turn the sim into a game, and their precious simulator, which they took quite seriously, would just become some kind of arcade combat game. And of course that didn't happen. The mission system was a replacement for the old ABL system, the adventure building language, which has been in Flight Sim for many years, and the mission system just expanded on that. Now, you can turn it into a game, as a lot of the included missions with FSX did, but you can also do many other things with it. You can use them as very complicated training scenarios. The things you can check for in missions is very, very complicated. You can just use them as guides. One of the problems that people often complain about in flight sims in general, and FSX, is that there's nothing to do, which kind of misses the point of having a simulator. But nevertheless, whether you're a simulated pilot or a real pilot, you need something to do. You don't find real pilots paying hundreds of pounds to fly a plane and just go around in circles for an hour because they're flying a plane. They go somewhere. And that's the kind of thing that you can very quickly do in the FSX Mission Editor. You can just start off at a given point and say, my goal is to fly from my local airport. I'm going to fly to the south coast of England. I'm going to fly along the south coast, round the Isle of Wight. I have to come back crossing a danger area and an airport zone, and then land back at the original airport. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It's just a guideline. You can use them as scenic tours. Anything you can imagine. What the missions really add to FSX is the ability to tell stories. Now, that story can be as simple or as complicated as you like, but it adds depth to the simulator in a way that really nothing else does. And the Mission Editor for FSX helps you to do that. So hopefully this little introduction has given you an idea of why it exists, a very quick overview of how to get going. The mission that we created there with the wizard is fully flyable in the simulator already, and whether it's worth you upgrading if you're coming from version 1. If you do have a license for version 1, you will get a substantial discount on version 2. So stop by the website www.fsmissioneditor.com and have a look. There's a free trial copy available, so download it, play with your heart's content, and create some stories for your favourite simulator. Thanks very much for watching.